First, I want to welcome folks to our NationBuilder Summer Communications Academy. I highly encourage checking out the first two sessions of our NationBuilder Summer Communications Academy. The first session was on NationBuilder as a communication suite and how there are so many tools to help with your communication goals. And then we had a session designated to how to design beautiful e-blasts that move people to action using our recently released email builder. Both of those sessions, I believe, are live on our YouTube channel. So do check those out after this session if you haven't watched those already. If you are live for the first two sessions and you're here now, you've got 3 in a row, you're on a streak. Congratulations, keep it going. We have 2 more sessions coming up. One will be on text blasting. That'll be the next session 1 week from today. And then we'll have a session dedicated to email deliverability strategy. So make sure to RSVP to those sessions if you have not already. My name is Michael O'Neill, and I am based in Syracuse, New York. And I've been with NationBuilder since November of last year. And I have, prior to that, was a NationBuilder customer for about 10 years. So I love geeking out on NationBuilder with people and helping them use NationBuilder to achieve their goals and see the fulfillment of the mission of their organization or their campaign. And so it's a real pleasure to get to speak to you today about automations in NationBuilder. So for our next poll, I would love to know what best describes your use of NationBuilder automations. How do you relate to NationBuilder automations at this point? First option, you have no idea where to start. Okay, I see we've got one person voting on that already. Okay, maybe you have a few ideas about how to use NationBuilder automations, but you haven't gone live with one yet. Okay, I see some folks filling in that answer. Maybe you've run 1 or 2 automations in the past, but it's not a regular staple of your communications program. Maybe you don't have one running currently. And maybe you have a NationBuilder automation running right now, that this is a pillar of your communications program. And what I'm hoping is that over the course of this webinar, we get you to a point where you have greater clarity on how automations work in NationBuilder, what they can do for you and your organization, and how you can set them up. And in doing so, we're going to save you time in your campaign or your organization. We're going to improve the experiences of your supporters, and we're going to strengthen the relationship that you have with your supporters so that you can scale them up into volunteers and donors and taking on more impactful and powerful leadership positions in your campaign. So it seems that we've got about just under half of folks who don't know where to start, about the same number of folks who have a few ideas but they haven't gone live yet. And we've got some folks, about 15%, 16%, who've run a NationBuilder automation in the past, but they're not currently running one. So I'm hoping that in the time that you spend here with me, we're going to get you to where if you don't have a NationBuilder automation running now, you feel like you've got the steps that you need to get one going that is going to serve your organization and strengthen your relationship with supporters. So sharing those results so that you can see those as opposed to just relying to me reading them off. If you didn't trust my reporting, now you can see the results there on screen. So while you're checking out the poll results, we can just go over our agenda briefly here. So we're going to talk about what are automations in NationBuilder and some key concepts, when to use them, how to plan to set up your automation, regarding who's going to be in the automation, who to leave out of the automation. We're going to talk about the messaging that you put in your automation, to make sure that it's driving people to action and moving your organization or your campaign closer to its goals. We're going to talk about tracking results, and then we're going to leave some time for questions and feedback. So, and just a quick reminder, if at any point you've got a question about what I'm talking about, please do post it in the Q&A feature here in Zoom, and we will do our best to answer that for you. So, what are automations? Automations are found in the workflows section of the control panel in your nation. Automations build multi-step messaging campaigns over a customizable time period. So those are like the real two key features of automations, is that they can be multiple steps and that you can customize the time period in terms of when the first automation message is sent out, or a delay between subsequent messages in your automation workflow. Some key concepts. Some other names that you might have heard automations referred to in other places, other venues, as like a drip marketing campaign. You've probably heard it maybe as referred to as an email series. You might have heard it referred to as a welcome series, and a welcome series is definitely one of the most common and impactful automations that we can set up. And if your current NationBuilder plan only allows you access to one automation, a welcome series is a great place to start. In the source of your automation, we talk about the supporters who are going to be entering the automation. Who's going to go into this? Who's going to be enrolled? Who are you purposefully excluding from the automation? Because there are cases where you maybe don't want to send a 5-email welcome series to people who've been a part of your supporter base for years. And so how do we make sure to not inadvertently enroll people? We'll talk about that in a bit. The sources for your automations can include results in the people filter that you then manually enroll those results into a running automation. Action pages, such as sign-up pages, petition pages, donation pages, and also you can take a list from your nation and you can enroll those people into an automation as like a one-time audience. When we're talking about the content of an automation, we're talking about those preset emails that you compose in our email builder or our classic email editor. And yes, you can use smart fields and liquid tags in those messages to customize what's going out to your supporters. A few more key concepts. The time delays I mentioned. You can define a time delay or not. If you want to have an automation trigger the moment they take action or the moment you enroll them into the automation, you can do that. But you can set that delay for before they get that first email, but also for subsequent emails, as I mentioned before. The results of your automation. We have powerful features in NationBuilder automations. Number one, to see the kinds of metrics that you're used to in NationBuilder e-blasts, like the rates that people are clicking through on the emails that you're sending them. The bounce rate, opens for the open rates for the different steps in your email series that you've put out there. You can also track conversions, and with conversions, we're talking about an action that people are taking most frequently on a NationBuilder action page, where if they're donating or starting a membership, you can track those specific conversions as results of your automation, so you can see just how effective it is. So, when are automations helpful to your organization? When do they make the biggest impact? Automations are most impactful at the major milestones in your supporters' relationship to your movement. So think about the points where you have a supporter who's either brand new, right? That's a major milestone. They're coming to your organization, your campaign, entering into your nation as a supporter. But different kinds of beginnings as well. Maybe they go from a supporter to an actual member. Maybe they join a statewide leadership circle. And so you want to onboard them with some orientation materials. When the first time that they donate, that's a huge milestone for their relationship to your movement, to what you're building. And so a thank you series after a first donation can be very impactful. The transition from a one-time donor to a recurring donor, that's a huge milestone. And it's a great way to move people from that first donation to becoming a recurring donor is by, after that first donation, enrolling them in an automation series where you're making the case for how their recurring donation can make an even bigger impact on your mission. So automations are great to employ when either a supporter has achieved or reached a major milestone, or when you want to move them to that next milestone, like in the case of going from a one-time donor to a recurring donor. Getting supporters to go from just people who are on your email list and receiving updates to becoming actual volunteers and scaling up the capacity of your nation. That's a fantastic application of automations. If you are appealing to them to start doing peer-to-peer recruiting, having them now be the ambassadors for your nation, for your campaign, for your organization, your mission out in the world, using recruiter links, which you're using liquid tags to dynamically place in your automation emails to bring people in and grow and scale up your nation exponentially. With events, you can send an automation, trigger an automation for when people RSVP to an event, and having an anticipation series. So sending them a few teaser emails about an event that they have RSVP'd for, that can be powerful. Also following up, especially if it was a volunteer event or an introductory event, sending a follow-up series can really put those roots down so that the supporter who went out and attended an event feels really connected in an ongoing way, is going to be more likely to show up to that next event. So I want you to think about what are the most common, most important beats that occur in the stories of how supporters connect to your mission. How can those beats be nurtured, and how can that connection be strengthened? What is the ladder of engagement that you're trying to move people up so that when they come to you as a new supporter, how do they become donors? How do they become volunteers? How do they become recruiters? Think about how that most commonly happens in your organization or your campaign currently, and then how can you supercharge that by using these automated email series to nurture and strengthen those relationships in ways that you haven't been able to before. Automations benefit from planning, just like any other aspect of your communications program. And so the first aspect of that we're going to tackle is who goes into your automation and who do you make sure that you leave out. So working with automation sources, the most flexible and powerful source that you can set up for your automation is actually multiple sources. When you start your automation, you can choose a multiple source automation as the automation type, and then you can automatically enroll supporters by designating action pages so that when someone takes action on that page, an event RSVP page, a donate page, a sign up page, multiple pages of different kinds, they can all funnel in to this automation from multiple points of entry. You can also use Action Button. And if you haven't linked Action Button to your NationBuilder account yet, I highly recommend doing that. Action Button sign up pages, and for Action Button Premium folks who have the contact your lawmaker or custom email contact buttons, those are fantastic points of entry to get people into an automation. And those don't even have to live on your website. You can embed those in different places online. You can link to them directly on social media. So multiple source automations are super powerful. As I mentioned, you've got your action pages, Action Button, and if you're using an action page as the sole source of an automation, so this is a different automation source type, is just one action page. One benefit of that is that it's the only place that people are going to enter a particular automation from. Also, when you choose the action page single source automation type, the automation will actually tell you if you have an autoresponder active on that page. So that can be helpful. As I mentioned before, you can take a NationBuilder list from the control panel and enroll that as one batch of supporters into your automation. You're not going to be able to exclude people who are on that list from the automation. So make sure that the list is exactly who you want to receive this automation. It's a static audience type for the automation. And then this brings me to the ability to limit enrollment in your automation series. And so, as I mentioned, with multiple source automations and action page automations, you can suppress someone from being enrolled into an automation through pre-selected tags that you set up while designing the automation. So that's an overview of automation sources. So in a multiple source automation, just to get into the details a little bit more, after you've set up the content and the time delays between those email messages, you click run, then you enroll people into the automation. So you set up the content and the time gaps, then you click run, then you go out and choose the pages that are going to put people into the automation, put in the filter criteria that you want to use to enroll people, set up the action button. With the other sources, with the single sources, you choose that single source, whether it's a list, whether it's a single page, at the time of setting up the automation. And the great thing about multiple source automations is that you can add more sources over time as you create new in different pages. So let's get back to limiting enrollment, because this is actually the number one concern I hear when I'm talking to customers about automations, is that they want to ensure that the wrong people aren't enrolled. For example, making sure that longtime supporters are not enrolled in a welcome series that you just created, or that a supporter will not be enrolled more than once if they take multiple actions on different points in your website or an action button. Our automations are designed so that a supporter can go through that automation only one time. So if someone signs up on a sign-up page and they get enrolled in the automation, and then they RSVP for an event that's sending people to the same automation, you don't need to worry about them getting 2 copies of the automation. You can put that worry out of your mind. Now, for other folks who maybe, if, like I said, maybe you have an event RSVP page and you have someone who's been in your nation for a while and you've got a brand new welcome series, they RSVP, you don't want them to get that welcome series. You can use tags to suppress those people from being enrolled, even though they took action on that page. You can also use filters in the people section of your nation to easily identify and track who was enrolled in or completed an automation to exclude them from similar automations in the future. So while the system will make sure that Casey Smith isn't enrolled twice in a welcome series, if for whatever reason you retire that welcome series, you archive it, and then you create a new welcome series from scratch, the system's not going to know that Casey Smith already went through the other welcome series. So that's where you want to use filters. And you can see on screen on the right-hand side, we have filters in people for who is currently enrolled in a specific automation, who has ever been enrolled in a specific automation, and who has completed a specific automation. Save a filter to auto tag people who should be, you can save a filter and use an auto tag to automatically tag profiles who have been enrolled in or completed an automation, so you can easily see their status later on their profiles for automations that they entered into, and then easily exclude them from similar automations in the future. You can see that in the left-hand side in the automation widget that's at the top there, excluding people with the tag donors. This is where at the start of your automation, you would use any tag to exclude people who you don't want going in, whether it's because they were enrolled in a similar automation in the past or the automation just isn't a good fit for them. If you're wondering about a specific supporter and they don't have a tag, you haven't set up that automation tag, or the auto tag from a saved filter, I should say, then you can check the automations tab on their people profile to see which automations they are enrolled in or have completed. So let's talk about the message of your automation, because that needs to be planned out too. Part of the defining feature of automations is that you have these multi-step pre-composed messages. One, I got to give a shout out to our email builder, beautiful drag and drop email building interface. And you want to showcase what you're working on. You want to share specific stories of how your organization's made an impact. You want to inspire people with examples, and you want to include a personalized ask. I strongly encourage that any automation that you take the time to set up, it should have a specific ask, a specific action that you're trying to move your supporters towards. So the question of, what do I put in this 3 or 4 emails that I'm putting in this automation can sometimes be daunting to folks. These are some examples of the kinds of content you can create beyond just whatever it is that you're trying to get them to do, but some narrative aspects of your organization's work so that you can get them inspired and get them motivated to act. Tracking the results of your automation. You can track the actual eBlast results for each email step. And I'm showing you a screenshot right now of the different subtabs in the email automation results screen. This is going to look very familiar to you if you've ever sent eBlasts to automation. Sent eBlasts from your nation. You want to make sure that you keep an eye on the stats that are going to impact your deliverability for your nation, such as reported spam and bounces. You want to pause your automation immediately if you're getting bad results, like reported spam, like bounces. That's the opposite effect of what you want to have on your supporters, and it's going to have a negative impact on all of your email deliverability, including your eBlasts. So you'll have those stats broken down for each message that's in your automation. And you'll notice in that on the right-hand side, there's that actions drop down. You can take the folks in any of those subtabs and you can add them to a list or remove them from a list, so you can then do batch operations with those supporters in your nation. Conversions. So we were just talking about the performance of the actual emails in terms of open rates, click-through, things like that. You can track the performance of whatever action you're asking them to take online in your nation through conversions, and you set those up at the time of designing your automation. And if you have different types of conversions that you can track: making a donation, becoming a member, RSVPing for an event, or signing up on a page. If you are tracking signups, you have to designate a specific signup page. For other types of conversions, there's a lot of flexibility. It doesn't have to be a donation from a specific page. It can just be that they made a donation at all. But when you track a donation from a specific page, or specifically the frequency of a donation, which can also be tracked in a conversion, that can be really helpful when you are, for example, trying to get people to go from being one-time donors to recurring donors. You can track RSVPs not just for a specific event, but also for a specific ticket level. So there's a lot of flexibility there to be explored. So at this point, I want to actually introduce a little bit of a bonus that we have for you for taking the time to be part of this webinar, for being part of this communications series, and for learning about NationBuilder automations, which is we have some really handy templates that can be fantastic for drafting your automation content and also planning some of the different features that you're going to leverage in your automation. These are resources that we have available online that are going to be posted in the follow-up message for this webinar. And if you're watching this as video on demand, we'll make those links available in the description for this video. But we have a fantastic document that lets you fully map out, not in the control panel, but in a place where maybe you just have a little bit more space to think and where you can collaborate with other folks within your organization or your campaign, how you're going to leverage different features of the automation, keeping track of who you're putting in, how you are creating exclusions, and then mapping out the content that you're going to use and any dynamic content like liquid tags or smart fields for that automation. So with that, I'm running a little bit over time, but I did want to check the Q&A real quick to see what we have. We had a question about membership fees. Going through NationBuilder counting as a donation, is there a way to separate membership fees from actual donations? The answer to that is yes, and there's documentation that we can point to on that. So we had another question about adding automation steps as you go along, or having to set up all of your automations with the campaign. You can edit your automation as you go along, or at least you can, so you can pause your automation to make changes. And then when you're happy with those changes, you can resume it. The content of your email steps can be edited while your automation is running. So this would actually be a great time to show you briefly an example welcome series that I have set up in a Sandbox Nation here. So for this automation, it's a multi-source automation. So it's going to be people coming from different pages, filter results that I'm manually enrolling into the automation. And when someone is enrolled, they automatically receive an email. And this is actually going to take the place of the autoresponder that's built into the sign-up page. And the reason I'm using the automation for this is that because I get those eBlast stats, or the stats that you're familiar with from NationBuilder eBlast, rather than using the built-in autoresponder on a sign-up page, I will actually be able to track the opens and click-throughs that are in that initial autoresponder that I'm sending through the automation. Then I wait a day and give the supporter a little time to breathe, a little time to process. Then I send a welcome from our executive director of this notional organization that's sending out this automation. It's personalized, it's coming from the executive director's name, all of these settings that you can set just like you would in a NationBuilder eBlast, from choosing the broadcaster to the subject line, everything that you would expect. And so we have that as a heartfelt welcome message from a leader in the organization. Then we wait 2 more days, give the supporter a little time to process, time to check their other email. Now we send them an eBlast outlining recent accomplishments of our organization, and also an issues survey. And the goal of that is to really pump up that, hey, this organization that they've become a supporter of is making changes in the world. They're making them an impact. People join movements because they want to help contribute towards a change in the world that they can't do on their own. And so by listing some recent accomplishments, that narrative, you can help paint that picture for them. And then with an issues survey, you're having them take more action on your website. You're showing that you're interested in the issues they care about most. And then you can use the data that you get from their responses to send them even more targeted content in other aspects of your communications program. So now we wait a couple more days. And so now we're going to ask them to move up the ladder of engagement by filling out a petition that we have. And this is an example of where you would want to maybe edit that final eBlast to make sure it's your most up-to-date petition. And you can edit that content while the automation is running and make sure that you're not sending them to a page that's for a petition that's no longer active. So I hope seeing those steps and how we punctuate the emails with time delays, which can be days, can be weeks, gives you a sense of how you might be able to map out your own automation. So as we get closer to wrapping up here, I have the ask that you take a moment to download those bonus materials that we're going to send you as links so that you can begin plotting out your automation, and that you just take that step towards setting up your first NationBuilder automation. You've got the tools. A welcome series is never a bad idea for your nation. We've gone over how to create the content, how to enroll the right people into the automation, and how you can use automations to tell a story and move people to action.